So hello students, today we will start your first chapter, that is the fundamental unit of life. Fundamental unit of life. To understand the topic, life means living organisms. So the term life means living organisms, and the living organisms is nothing but a bundle of organ system. The organ systems are made up of large number of organs. The organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells, and the cells is a combination of several compounds. So this is the organization, total organization of living organisms. Large number of compounds organized together to form a structure called cell. Many cells join to form tissues. Tissues join to form organs. Organs collect to form organ system. And the organism is a bundle or collection of organ system. Out of all these things, when you see, we find that the compounds, there are several compounds inside the cells, they are unable to exist on their own and carry out life activities. There are several life activities which are performed by a living organism also, which are held by the organ system, organs, tissues. Even the cell, the smallest part of this total organization, the cell is capable of carrying out life activities. Because everyone is aware about the existence of unicellular organisms. There are a large number of organisms which are unicellular. That is, they have only one cell and they carry out all the life activities. So it is said that for a living organism to survive, okay, you need organ system, you need organ, you need tissue, but even a cell, which is the smallest part inside a living organism, is capable of carrying out all life activities. So the smallest unit which is having all the qualities of life can be or is the cell. That is why cell is called as the fundamental unit of life, the basic unit, smallest thing which is having life, which is capable of life activities, is the cell. Because when you go beyond that, smaller than cell, they lose the capability of carrying out the life activities on their own. Means, when we are going to study about fundamental unit of life, we are going to study about cell. Lot of scientists have worked upon it and found it out that cell is the fundamental unit of life, the smallest thing present in a living organism. On its own, the cell is alone capable of doing all the life activities. There are a lot of scientists that you can see in your book: Leeuwenhoek, Sladen, Swan. Large number of scientists, they have worked upon the activity of cell. Of course, cell was first of all found out by a scientist, Robert Hooke, and they have all worked upon it to know what is a cell, what it is made up of, and they have summed up all these things in a cell theory. The cell theory is a basic concept which explains a lot of things about the cell, about which we are talking about. That every living organism is made up of a cell, and cell is the smallest part inside a living organism which is capable of doing all the life activities and is necessary for a living organism. Means, if cell is not present in anything, it cannot be called as a living organism. A living organism, to be called as a living organism, must have at least one cell. It is unicellular. It may have more than one cell. It is multicellular organism. The cell theory says that the cell is the structural and functional unit of life. That is the first point of cell theory. Cell theory, I told you, is an idea given regarding the basic concepts of a cell, what cell is. So cell is called as the structural and functional unit of life. A life or living organism has a certain structure. We have a certain structure. The head, the hand, the body, the legs. The plants have a certain structure. Amoeba has a certain structure. The structure is due to a cell. And the living organism performs large number of functions. We carry out digestion, respiration, movement, all those activities. The functions performed by living organism is also due to a cell. So cell is considered as the structural and functional unit of life. The second point is the cell comes from pre-existing cells. Although we all know that the cell is made up of several compounds and all the compounds are known, we know what are the compounds present inside a cell, what it is made up of. But if I give you all those things, you cannot join them and construct a cell in your lab on your own. If you need a new cell, the new cell has to come from already existing cell. Of course, we know it is by a process called cell division. A already present cell divides to form new cells. So new cells come from pre-existing cells. So these are the basic concepts that you need to know about a cell, summed up as cell theory, given by Sliden, Swan, the two scientists mostly responsible for it was Sliden, Swan, and Virchow are the three names that you need to remember, who worked upon the cell, studied about the cell, and gave a basic concept about a cell in the term of cell theory. Is that clear? So you have just now known about the cell theory. So we'll go into the cell. Cell, as I told you, the basic unit of a living organism. This cell has a certain shape and size. This concept has nothing to do with the size of an organism. First thing, you should forget that if your organism is huge, the cell will be larger. Elephant will have a larger cell, the mouse will have a smaller cell. No, that is not a concept. The cell has a certain shape and size, and the shape and size of a cell is decided by the function it has to perform. Different cells in our body has different functions to perform as they have developed. Right from head to your legs, there is brain. The cells of brain are entitled with doing certain activities, thinking, understanding. The cells present in your digestive system, the cells present in gland, they release enzymes to break down the food. So different cells have different function. The cells of nervous system has a function. The cells of muscular system, they are capable of contraction and relaxation. So different cells have different functions to perform, and according to the function, they take up a different kind of shape and size. So different cells, even within one organism, different cells have different shape and size. I mean to say, when the organism changes, the cell changes. But if you are talking about one single organism, human being, inside human being also all the cells present in your body are not similar. The different cells of different parts of your body are different from each other. But then the basic thing is, whatever may be the shape or size of a cell, it has many different shapes and size. It may be round, it may be rectangular, cuboidal, elongated, many different shapes. But whatever may be the shape or size of a cell always has a basic structure. What is the basic structure? The first thing, every cell has a outer covering. Each cell is surrounded by a cover that is called outer covering. The second thing is, every cell has a controlling center. The name is very clear, controlling center. A structure will come to it in further discussions. Controlling center is a central part of the cell which controls the structure and function of a cell. Cell performs large number of functions. What function it has to perform, how it has to perform, when it has to start, when it has to stop. Everything is controlled by the controlling center. And the third part is between the outer covering, the first part which we have discussed, and the controlling center. It has a semi-solid matrix which supplies the raw materials and the machinery. We'll come to these terms. As I told you, the cell performs large number of functions. To perform the function, it needs an order when it has to start, when it has to stop. So that order comes from controlling center. But then to perform the function, कोई काम करने के लिए एक मशीनरी चाहिए होता है और रॉ मटेरियल चाहिए होता है. इतना तो पता है, फैक्ट्रीज में जब काम होता है कोई चीज तो कुछ रॉ मटेरियल चाहिए और एक मशीन चाहिए जो उस काम को कर पाए. तो वो जो चीज प्रोवाइड करता है वो आउटर कवरिंग और कंट्रोलिंग सेंटर के बीच में एक रफ स्ट्रक्चर अगर बनाते हैं. हियर सपोज दिस इज अ सेल, सो आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द आउटर कवरिंग ऑफ द सेल. Then there is a controlling center at the center, this one. Now between the outer covering and the controlling center, this is the matrix. This matrix is where the raw materials and the machinery is present. So when we study about the structure of a cell, in general, all the cells, be it of any shape or size, we will talk about these main three parts of the cell. So we have talked about the three main parts of a cell. We will begin with the first one, that is outer covering. Outer covering always means a protective covering of the cell. And this is 2 in number in plant cells. And the animal cells have only one covering in case of animal cells. If I go into a very general type of diagram, I will say if it is an animal cell, so it has a controlling center at the center and there is the raw materials and there is just one covering. But if I draw a plant cell, I have to draw like this, 1 and 2. So the plant cells have 2 outer covering. The first external covering of the plant cell is called as cell wall, and the inner one of the inner covering of the plant cell and the only covering of the animal cell. These 2 are called as cell membrane, also called as plasma membrane. So there is only one plasma membrane or cell membrane present in animal cell, which is there also in plant cell. But apart from that, it has an external covering, extra covering, that is called as cell wall. So there are two types of, when we talk about the outer covering of a cell, there are two. The first one is the cell wall, and second is the cell membrane. They have basic differences between them that we will see. बहुत clear है पहला difference आप सब लिख पाओगे. It is present only in plant cell. Present only in plant cell. As far as cell membrane is concerned, it is present in both plant and animal cells. As you can see, animal cell में भी है, plant cell में भी है. Next comes the chemical composition of it. It is made of cellulose. Cellulose is nothing but a polymer of glucose. As far as cell membrane is concerned, it is made of phospholipid and proteins. When we will talk about the structure in detail, we will see this. So the chemical composition is also different. Now thing is, when the cell is doing the activities, there are a lot of materials which needs to enter into a cell, which needs to go out of a cell. The cell needs certain things into the cell, and there are certain things which has to go out of the cell, and that is done only through this outer covering. So in that case, we will say that the cell membrane is regarded as completely permeable. Completely permeable. Permeable word comes from permit, to allow. The cell wall allows everything to come in and go out of the cell. Doesn't stop anything. So it is as good as a non-living thing. Plays no role. But when cell membrane is concerned, the cell membrane is semi-permeable. Or so to say, it is also called as selectively permeable. Means it does not allow everything. Semi means half. Almost a rough calculation, half 50% of the things goes, 50% of the things are stopped from entering. Selectively permeable से ज़्यादा clear हो जाता है कि cell membrane always selects and then allows things. Things which are useful for the cell are allowed to go in. Things which are harmful are allowed to go out. It selects and then allows. Otherwise, nothing can enter in and go out on its own. So that is the basic difference between cell wall and cell membrane. The second part of the cell, which is we have just now talked about it in the name of controlling center, is also called as nucleus. Also called as nucleus. It itself is a round body. It is surrounded by a membrane. It controls the functions of a cell. If I talk about it, a well-developed nucleus has mainly 4 parts. If I talk about a cell, consider this diagram. This is outer covering no doubt, and then there is the raw materials. At the center, you can see here, there is a double wall, round body inside the cell, like this. This double membrane which surrounds this structure is called as the first part of the nucleus, called nuclear membrane. Some writers even prefer to write it as nuclear envelope. It is double membrane, has pores here and there, which connects the central part with the external raw materials. Then at the center, there is a semi-solid structure which is called as nucleoplasm. Nucleoplasm. Then there are round, dense bodies. Some writers prefer it as a nucleus of the nucleus. They call it as nucleolus. And then there are thread-like structures inside. These thread-like structures are called as chromatin. So these are the four main parts of a nucleus. The controlling center inside the cell has four main parts. But the thing is, a cell which has all these four parts, that is, which has a well-developed nucleus, is called a eukaryotic cell. Or in short, it is called as a eukaryote. Why I say this is because all the cells do not have such a nucleus. There are certain cells have only chromatin in the name of nucleus. Means inside their cells, if you have this as outer covering, then the raw materials, and then inside, to have all these four parts, in place of all these four parts, there is directly the thread-like structures in this semi-solid structure. That is, out of four parts, they don't have nuclear membrane, they don't have nucleoplasm, they don't have nucleus, there is only chromatin. Such a nucleus, such a poorly developed nucleus is called nucleoid. It's called as nucleoid, and the cells as prokaryotic cell or simply prokaryote. There are only two organisms in this category. You should remember the example. We have an organism called bacteria, and we have another organism called as, you have heard about it, it is blue-green algae. These are the two organisms which are prokaryote, means they don't have a well-developed nucleus, they have only chromatin in the name of nucleus. Apart from them, all the other living organisms, they have a well-developed nucleus, means which has all the four parts. So, apart from these two, all the organisms are called as eukaryotic cell. So, we have seen the outer covering of a cell, we have seen the controlling center of a cell, and we have talked about that every cell has a semi-solid matrix-like structure between the cover and the nucleus. This part, this is called as the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm has the raw materials for cellular activities. What are the raw materials? The raw materials it supplies are water, salts, oxygen, carbon dioxide, carbohydrates, fats, proteins, all the things which are necessary for cellular activities are present in the cytoplasm, and they are used by a cell. When we say the cell performs certain functions, we mean to say this. But how these things will be used? I have also used a term that raw materials and machineries. The machineries which uses these raw materials for cellular activities are in the form of various structures in the form of various structures present in the cytoplasm. These structures are called as the cell organelles. So there are several structures in the cytoplasm present here. Large number of structures are present inside the cytoplasm, which actually act as the machines which uses the raw materials and performs the function for the cell. These structures are called as cell organelles. There are certain cell organelles present in plant cell, there are certain present in animal cell, there are some organelles present in both. Is that clear? But as such, we will talk about certain cell organelles. The cell organelles are classified into semi-autonomous cell organelles, or we can call them as general cell organelles. There are large number of cell organelles. Some are called as semi-autonomous cell organelles. What are called semi-autonomous cell organelles? किनको बोलेंगे? These are those cell organelles which are not completely dependent on the nucleus for their activities. As taught earlier, that nucleus is the controlling center. It controls all the activities of the cell. अच्छा, activities of the cell is performed by cell organelles. मतलब cell organelles are controlled by nucleus. So those which are controlled by cell nucleus, they are completely controlled by nucleus. They are the general cell organelles. But there are certain cell organelles which are not under the control of nucleus completely. They carry out some of their activities on their own. There are two examples that you need to remember. They are called as mitochondria and the plastids. Apart from that, there are many cell organelles which are completely under the control of nucleus. We call them as Golgi bodies, the endoplasmic reticulum, the lysosomes, the ribosomes, vacuoles. Lot of other cell organelles are there. So in this part of video, we have studied about the general structure of a cell, about general ideas of a cell called cell theory. Then a cell has a general structure, whatever may be the shape and size. The general structure has three parts: the outer covering, the nucleus, and the cytoplasm. What is outer covering? Outer covering has two parts in plants: cell wall and cell membrane. Outer covering is only one in animal cell, called cell membrane only. The controlling center is called nucleus, what it is composed of, and around the nucleus in the jelly-like matrix called cytoplasm, what it does, what it has, these things. In the next part of the video, we will discuss about the functions, structure and function of these cell organelles. We will also talk about the basic function of nucleus, all the functions of the cellular parts. What is the function of nucleus, what is the function of mitochondria, plastid, and all other cell organelles. That will be discussed in the next part of the video.